All right, my name is Habib Mankel. I'm an Office Servers and Services MVP with a specialization in Skype. I'm also a Skype P-seller, I'm a UC architect and founder at Wavecore IT Inc. I have a blog, which you may have found me on, blog.wavecoreIT.com or blog.mankel.com. My Twitter handle is at Habib Mankel, if you'd like to follow along. So in today's recording, I'm going to be talking about Microsoft Teams. What is it? How is it licensed? How do we enable and configure the admin settings? Just a quick overview of how to configure the settings to get started. Hopefully in some future sessions, we'll be deep diving into the configurations a bit more, and I'll speak to that a little bit later. So Teams, what is it? It's a new chat-based workspace in Office 365. It gives team members access to the information that they need in a single hub, single application. So users can find their team, they can chat, they can see all the content, they can find people, and they can use the tools that leverage all the Office 365 functionality. So there's 4 key attributes to Microsoft Teams. So there's chat, obviously, is one of the major ones. It provides complete chat history, whether you're within a team or a group environment, and along with private chat, so peer-to-peer, just like you would in a Skype for Business perspective. So, chat history, when you think about that, we're really talking about the Skype for Business on-prem persistent chat functionality, where you have the ability to view all of the different messages as you pop in and out of the team. So when I go away for the day and there's people around the world still working on the particular team or project, you have the ability to go back in and view all the messages that have transpired through that, right? Second thing is, as I mentioned, it's a hub for teamwork. So it's a central application that connects you to all the different Microsoft backend infrastructures. So for instance, you're able to collaborate with all the different Office apps. So embedded inside the team itself, you can modify documents using all of the Office Online services. So Word Online, Excel Online, PowerPoint Online. And then you can also additionally use the full featured client, the desktop client in itself. So that is one of the key aspects of being in a central location to be able to get my work done instead of going to a few different places, right? So in addition, you have the ability to upload files into the team itself, and it uses OneDrive, which is SharePoint in the back end. And then there's some additional things which that you can do, which is in the next item, the third attribute, the third key attribute is every team is unique. So you can customize each team. So they can be set up differently. They can have more than one tab. They can have more than one channel. And I'll talk about what those are in a little bit. So lastly, security is obviously is a big thing today. We always want to make sure that our end users are protected, our infrastructure is protected, our company is protected, so that we still have the availability to provide that security aspect. So two-factor authentication, hard passwords, access policies, all of the data is encrypted. So not just the chats, but the voice and video, the notes and all the files are also encrypted as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hop out of this little PowerPoint deck that I got here. And I'm going to bring up the actual admin settings, and we're going to walk through those ourselves. So I'm just going to click on the sign in button here. Okay, so once I'm signed in, we go to the admin center. So we're going to go walk through how to enable the tenant itself. Okay, so once we finally get into the admin center, we want to go to settings on the left-hand menu, services and add-ins, and then about halfway down, we will find Microsoft Teams. So in here, I had the option enabled before. So what I want to do here is I'm going to show you that by default, it will look like this. When you first sign into your tenant to enable it, you're going to see that it's turned off. So currently, this is the user site configuration of Teams, and this will be changed at a later date. The roadmap for Skype and Teams was released today, so you'll be able to see a lot more information there. So there's two different options here under settings by user license type. There's business and enterprise, and there's guest. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about business and enterprise right now. So in order to turn on this Microsoft Teams, you do it on a tenant level. And then if you want to restrict that to particular users, you can remove that from the licensing option under the users section. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to enable this feature. So by doing that, now you can see there's tenant-wide settings. So we're going to quickly go through these. Some of them are self-explanatory as to what they are, but we're going to discuss a little bit some of the options here. So I'm just going to expand them all. So, some of the, like I said, some of the things are self-explanatory. So, short organizational chart in personal profile. So in my profile itself, when I log into Teams, I can see my org chart, who I report to or who reports to me, and so on. If a user does not have a team client installed, allow them to use Skype for Business for those particular users, right? So they can communicate between the two systems. So between a Skype user and a Teams user, they'll be able to IM each other, but it will be limited to specific things. So allow TBot proactive help messages. So TBot, what is it? It's a pretty cool feature. So it's a bot that's built into Teams, which allows you to ask it questions and get some help in response. So you can just type, hey, I'm having a problem creating a tab, and then it will respond back with some steps in order to help get you going, right? So email integration, what does that mean? Well, just like a Office 365 group or a distribution group, you want to be able to email a team in itself, which means that I don't necessarily have to have Teams open. If it's an external party that is emailing us, the email goes into Teams in itself, and then the team members are able to handle the mail and understand it and get back to the user. And all this is really saying is that what domain do you want the senders list to be able to come from? So applications, whether or not we want to allow external applications inside Teams, like Twilio, some of the other different functionalities like SurveyMonkey, so on and so forth. So there's different applications, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in another section when we actually go into the client itself. So what I'm going to be doing in the future sessions is I'm going to be turning these flags on and off, and then logging out and logging into the client just to show you what that security is going to look like from a functionality perspective. So cloud storage. So as I mentioned, by default, Teams uses OneDrive to store all your files in. Obviously, it uses SharePoint in the back end, but nonetheless, you still have a built-in cloud storage for your particular team. What this is saying is that, do I want to allow third-party applications into my team? So as an external application, I can sign into Box or Dropbox or Google Drive or ShareFile and allow my users in that particular team to access files that are stored in third-party storage facilities, right? So we already went through the settings by user and license type. So this is for business and enterprise, what we're doing now, and I'll touch in a moment what guest access is. So teams and channels. So there's no management for it in here. That's you actually manage it through your groups dashboard in Office 365. So that's over here in the upper left-hand corner here. So we'll get to that in a minute. And then this is where the Skype for Business like features are set up. So am I allowed to schedule private meetings, so my own personal meetings? Am I allowed to do an ad hoc channel meetup? am I allowed to schedule, meetings for my particular channel in itself? Videos and meetings, screen sharing, private calling, peer-to-peer. So, this is where, you would turn on those security features for the tenant level. So currently you can't set them on a per user level. Everything is wide open from a tenant level, so everybody would get these particular features. In the newer version of the admin console, you're going to have that granularity where you can create separate policies for meetings and channels and so on, and assign those to the particular members or users, so that they will have limited functionality or more functionality depending on the user themselves. So lastly, messaging, which is one of the biggest parts of Teams in itself. Do we want to allow Giphy files or attachments inside the chat itself? Do we want to have strict, moderate, allow all content rating? So you can type specific words in the messages, so on and so forth. It will have that sort of restriction from that perspective. And then, all of the fun stuff that's part of Teams. So memes, stickers, and then you have some of the retention-like settings, which is, do you want to allow the owners to delete all messages? You want people to edit their own messages or delete their own messages? Or do you want to allow users to chat privately, which means, just like Skype for Business, peer-to-peer messaging. So once we have all these settings that we like enabled, then we'll click Save. And then I'm going to come back into Teams just to show you the other option here, which is Guest Access, which allows external parties to join your meeting. So if I have a team, let's say, or a particular project that I have, and I have an external party coming in and helping me out, what I can do is, once all of that particular user or users have gone through all the compliances to be able to access my network, if I'd like, if I have that as part of my policy, then I can send an invite out to them to allow them to join my team. They don't need any special Active Directory permissions. They just need to be able to get the link, register themselves as part of my team, and they will be allowed to collaborate in the team that I'm in. So they can see all of the different tabs, all the different channels, but only in that particular team. So I may be part of multiple teams or manage multiple teams, but those particular users can only see the one team that they have been invited to. So once we do that and we enable that, now Teams is enabled in my enterprise. So what do I do? So what I want to talk about lastly in this session was licensing. So from a license perspective, Teams is licensed with any Office 365 commercial customers. So anyone with a Business Essentials, Business Premium, E1, E3, E5 plan. So it comes already included. There's no additional purchase required. You just need one of those type of licenses in order to enable Teams. So as I mentioned before, once you enable Teams on the tenant itself, all the particular users get Teams enabled. So I'm going to go here to Anita, and you can see here that now she has Teams enabled as part of her E3 license. If I wanted to disable this feature for Anita herself, then I would just flip the switch and turn it off and save that for her. Now she won't be able to sign into Teams. She won't be able to access into the application itself, but she can still continue to use Skype for Business because she still is licensed for Skype for Business. So anyways, that's the end of the session. I wanted to quickly, go over what Teams was, how do we license it, what are some of the features and functionality in it today from a management perspective. And then in future sessions, I'm going to be digging a bit deeper into it, and we're going to be flipping some switches, seeing what the client looks like as we do that, and then going through the whole process of creating our teams, managing them, and so on. So hopefully you'll see the next one soon.